Hi, welcome to Rise and Shine. My name is Alissa IG, the consultress. I have with me my good friend John Taylor McEntire. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you, Alyssa. So glad to be here.
Heck yeah. I mean, listen, the whole purpose of having these discussions to give the audience a view into the room where it happens, the discussions that get to happen on the cutting edge of philosophy, business, and altogether creating whatever this new normal is going to be, because nothing's normal about the age of disruption that we find ourselves in. And it's also an opportunity to renew what our priorities are and decide how to go forward together. So I'm so happy to have you here today. And the reason that I wanted so much to talk to you further after we met a couple of years ago, I think, in a Zoom training room where we were coaching and facilitating and giving of ourselves, is my word for this past year has been prosperity. And being that this is the last viewing and it will be aired on Christmas morning, I think prosperity is kind of the capstone of what I've been up to and how that word has just transpired for me. And John, your brand is mutual prosperity. And I'm so drawn to that. Can you please tell us more about what that is and what it entails?
Well, I think I need to go backwards and just kind of talk a little bit about myself and why the mutual prosperity name came
Oh,
about.
yeah, that's true. That is very true. Let people know who you are, why you're passionate. I forgot all about that. But please, yes, take the mic.
um, so I grew up in a very different household. We had lots of people, lots of different faces at our table all the time, and in our house. I had two Navajo Indian foster brothers who were with us during the school years. Two cousins lived with us, and then we had lots of international exchange students and actually humanitarian refugees. A family from Laos came in on Christmas Eve in 1980, and there were six of them. And I remember picking them up at the airport. We picked them up at the airport, and it was snowing, and they had never seen snow before. So my dad stopped the car on the road, and anyway, they got out of the car, and they were just in awe of the snow, that was coming down, and also the snow on the road. But this background helped me understand that really everybody has a purpose here on Earth, okay, and everybody comes from different backgrounds and everything, but it's really important that we understand that the collective interests of the whole are really in the individuals that are there that can give of themselves. And so that's one aspect of my upbringing. Another part is that by the time I was 21, I had lived in 3 countries. I had traveled to 19 countries and all 50 states. And so I feel really blessed for being able just to see all these different cultures and these different places and different events that took place in their histories and everything. And that really shaped who I am and who I've ended up becoming. And that is, working around the world and doing things that I try to do. So um, I I think of myself as an innovation ecosystem enabler, and
Ooh,
basically that's basically pulling together communities to make innovation happen and everything. So that's what 32 years of my career was about and everything. But I grew up in a household where I just learned there needed to be like a balance between left and right brain, if you will, the
mm.
arts and the sciences, um, and intuition and book learning. My grandfather, Eldon Taylor McEntire, he basically said, "Don't let your education interfere with your education." So basically,
Yeah, right.
what he
I mean,
was, yeah,
I just want to make a comment there real quick,
yeah,
because
please.
so much of what we're taught as education is
Mhm.
a contrived system of reverse engineering what occurs to humans along their growth path. So,
Yeah,
like, if my story a little bit, it kind of embodies that, is I learned how to build business as an entrepreneur after I finished all the structural stuff and then realized, like, Man, I got a lot to learn. I feel like I'm just getting started. So, a testament to that is more around, how we go about, incorporating what we're experiencing, because that's where the real learning gets to happen. And I love that, don't let your education get in the way of your education, because it's all learning. And to slice it up like that, I think is at the bottom of where prosperity kind of gets lost, is
Oh,
because we are subdividing and specializing so far down the path that we don't really get the opportunity to see the whole picture. And so say more, please. I would love for you to continue.
no, no. Well, thanks so much for your input there. Very, very important. And I totally agree with you in regards to prosperity kind of gets pushed to the side. Um, People think that prosperity is just like for the wealthy and everything, but prosperity is really a state of mind, and we need to try to get there. But we need to try to get there mutually, because if we get there together, we're going to be much better than if we get there separately. That I talk about puzzle pieces, and everybody has their unique piece of the puzzle. Everybody here, I believe, is on Earth for a purpose, and they need to find their purpose. And the fact of the matter is that most people don't find their purpose, and
Mm,
that's really what I'm trying to do, is help people find their purpose. In the Bible, in Luke 12:48, it says, "To whom much is given, much is required." And Professor Henry Haynes, in 1879, he said, "The possession of great powers and capacity for good implies equal and great responsibilities in their employment. Where so much has been given, much is required." And Winston Churchill also said, "The price of greatness is responsibility." So each one of us needs to find our own greatness, and everybody has it in them. I believe that firmly and everything.
mhm.
So a couple things about my growing up, though. I had these different opportunities, which I feel really blessed about. Okay, but I've also learned to kind of walk in different people's shoes. So I've been working since I was 11, and so I first started work in my dad's uh, orthopedic office. I was a file clerk. Okay, and so I kind of learned, the hierarchy of things. Here is this orthopedic surgeon's son. I'm coming in, and at the time, I actually had started acting at age 9, and so I had a little bit of a big head at this time, okay, in regards to what was going on in that part of my life, and then also being the son of this person who owns this business. I kind of got out of myself and let people know who I was, and I got let know who I was.
Yeah, it
And then
happens to
that was
all of
not
us.
appropriate, and I had to apologize, and I had to actually acquiesce to those who had authority over me. So I learned about hierarchy and the importance of that, but also the importance of respect for others and everything, because you can't be respected if you're not respecting others and everything. But from 11, I did that file clerk. I did paper route stuff, of course, lawn mowing. I cleaned these mansions with one of my cousins that lived with me when we were in high school, and then worked in construction. Let's see, I painted houses inside and outside. Did some interior design work. In college, I sold cars, sold clothes, and sold jewelry. And then
How does this I want to ask quickly, because I know everyone's wondering, like, I feel like I've had all of these jobs, or at least
sure.
some of them. Some of them are very unique, like cleaning mansions. I don't know. But I spoke on a previous episode about how that you can look at it one of two ways. You can look at it as a jack of all trades, master of none, or broad experience that gave you access, like you were saying about having all of these people living in your house. It sounds like all of these different job experiences gave you a unique perspective.
Yeah,
So what
absolutely.
do you think it set the foundation for?
So like when I flipped hamburgers and did French fries at Wendy's, and when I delivered pizzas, in each one of those jobs, I could actually see the importance of the job, okay, in that company, but actually as a service to mankind, to the people in the area and
Mhm.
everything. And also gained a better understanding as to how people in those different positions think, and feel. And so this is where the mutual prosperity comes in, where if people are treated well by the people above them, okay, then the group prospers well, okay, the company does well. You get a lot of clients, you get customers and things like that. If it doesn't gel very well, the business dies. And so each one of those positions is very important. So I'm really glad you asked me this question, because it's not so much about being a jack of all trades. It's being somebody who respects the culture of others, and the culture of these different positions and everything, which has helped me do that innovation ecosystem development, because each piece of that puzzle is so important. You need to
Yeah.
understand how they think.
Yes, and I love what you said about the leadership makes all the difference. And the top of the house really kind of sets the tone. I'm sitting here relating to you. Like, I grew up in a family business where I also, behind the counter and with the people who were serving the bagels, got the opportunity to learn how they thought and felt. And I took that persona on, and I took it very personally because they were good people. But at the same time, I grew up in a decent sized home, in a community where that was on the larger scale. So people would, call me different names and kind of, throw the mud at the, as if I were like princess type of deal. And it hurt. So like I saw that both sides of the dynamic around, the haves and the have nots, or the work hards and the work nots. And you can put on any perspective you like, but getting that firsthand knowledge that each station in life, no matter where you are, what you're up to, has its value and also has its perspective. I want to just applaud you for threading that into an ecosystem that promotes prosperity, not only for driven in one direction, but mutual prosperity to me feels like it's like self-sustaining, so that it feeds the whole as it feeds its purpose. So how does that show up with mutual prosperity as an organization?
So with mutual prosperity as an organization, I have a program called sync, synchronize yourself naturally within your community.
Mhm.
And basically it's a toolkit of things that I've gathered around the world, from my travels, and actually working in 22 different countries. Basically, again, culture is something that we should be learning from each other rather than despising or pushing against. And we need to recognize that it's our differences that actually can bring us together better if we actually allow it. So you need to synchronize yourself naturally within your community. It's basically you know it's we got synchronize, which is trying to understand the orbs of influence. Okay, so you have your orb in the middle, and then all these other orbs are around, and some are like really far away, and some of them are closer. Like your boss should be really close to you. Okay, your family should be really close to you, and if you're not, then you need to figure out what you're doing wrong to do that. But your goal is to try and get everybody closer together, and then we have what's called the curse of Babel. And Babel just made language you know prolific, and all these different languages came out, and so we have a hard time communicating with each other. And language is not just the international cultural aspects of people speaking different languages, but it's actually within our companies and within our organizations and our families even. Everybody speaks a different language. So in a company, you've got people who speak finance talk, people who speak factory talk, people who speak marketing, people who speak legal, and then you have the C-suite that speaks their own language. And if you don't really kind of meld those together and get people speaking the same language at the same time, I think that jargon that we use, those types of terms, actually are not really useful, because people don't often understand what those jargon things mean. And I think what I've learned as I'm doing my work is that this language aspect and the orbs of influence has actually a bigger thing than what I was imagining, and that is that we need to let people be themselves, okay, and they need to be heard. And so the language means that we need to, try to understand others and them understand us, but come to a common language. So we're a global community is basically what I'm trying to say. And as a global community, we have so many different types of people in our organizations now than we did in the past. And so we need to be welcoming, and then we need to learn to learn from them. And I think that's what's really interesting. That family that I was telling you about that came on Christmas Eve, they were from Laos, and they were political refugees actually, and he was a PhD, and they had nothing when they came, and it was really hard for him to take on really menial tasks and everything, because he didn't have the degrees from our Western world and everything. And so I saw that was not really fair, that somehow we need to help ourselves dig into what other people are doing, what they're about, and bring them together. So it's that global community. I don't know if you wanted me to tell you more about the S.Y.N.C program or what, but you got yourself, which is personalized, and that's trying to become a servant leader, okay? And I have what's called the 7 M's of service that comes from the Philippines, and that's really interesting. It's just all this, the servant leadership. It's servitude is really important for us to get to know people better, and naturally is where we need to kind of focus in on what our intuition is telling us, okay? But besides intuition, we need to understand what the Koreans call the art that we call nunchi, which is the art of reading a room. So you need to be able to read a room and understand who's in there and what it's all about and everything. And then community or communitize is basically how you kind of pull all those pieces together. Yeah, so it's synchronize yourself naturally within your community, okay?
So is S.Y.N.C an acronym?
It's an acronym, yes. S-Y-N-C.
S-Y-N-C. And what is the S?
Synchronize
Why?
yourself naturally within your community.
Ah, okay. And so the S.Y.N.C principles are around like reading the room and seeing, what other people have to offer, not author. And I think some of the stuff that comes up for me that feels like the most important and useful thing for my life personally, but also for the people that I come across, is very often we find ourselves communicating from a place of our own mastery, and we don't know what the other person doesn't know. We don't understand why our words fall on their ears and they don't mean the same thing. I have a very beautiful example of that in my home. I am a righty, my husband is a lefty, and the way I describe things, he describes them the exact opposite way. So oftentimes we've had to really kind of open up, like, okay, so I'm describing, we're driving down the street from north to south, it's on the right. And he goes, well, I'm driving up the street and it's south to north and it's on the left. And we're saying the same thing, but it's not actually the same words. So even that tiny example is the same as, client relations, or, for me, it shows up in investment strategies when people who are looking to get involved minimize the risks because they don't really know what the risks are. And then the sponsors, the people who are in the deals, who are doing it, they speak a very different language, so they're not real sure how to translate to somebody who is nascent to that language. And I find the translators of the world is really about who is bringing the value, because that's the connection piece that allows folks to get on the same page. So translators and people who, not necessarily people who translate foreign languages to others, but like you were saying, the vernacular, the way people speak in their discipline, or the way people speak because of their lifestyle. Are you a country person or a city person? Those languages are very different. So this kind of applies broad scope in everyone's life, whether it's how you do your work or how you engage with your family. But I think also it's a philosophical point about where the world is today, and having to seek out the places where what I'm saying and what you're saying, there's always a way to figure common ground, and just to, seek that you shall also understand, not to be understood, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
not what the quote is, right? So I love what you're up to about creating an institutionalized way for people to do this. Now, I know from conversations that we've had in the past that this is actually the very thing that big business and big technology is kind of based on, is that translating, and that the bulk of your work across 22 countries, perhaps, and larger and more prolific, that you were able to see how to translate different processes and different resource ecosystems so that value can be shared. And I want to, bring light to the fact that mutual prosperity is, yes, it's a nice thing to think about, and it's a good way to have humane and great connection with others, but also tactically speaking, technologically speaking, and organizationally speaking, it is the lifeblood of what makes value created, and to be able to make it stick. So can you just speak a little bit about that? I know that the universe of this kind of blew my mind the last time we spoke about it. So I don't know if there's a way to summarize that for our viewers who do not speak the jargon.
Yeah. So just a couple things. I think you brought up the right and left brain aspect and everything, and I think each one of us has a little bit of both. Some, a lot of others, and less of one of the others. But anyway, there needs to be a balance, and that balance needs to be seen in organizations too. But one of the times when I felt that balance the most, and I feel great balance right now, but one of the times I felt the balance most was kind of mid-career, when we had just moved back from Tokyo, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I ended up getting in this company that was a software and hardware distributor. And so I was helping them open up a Pacific Rim division. And I thought I did my homework, and was, had looked into this organization really well, but it ended up being, more fly-by-nightish than I thought it would. And so I didn't want to be in that company for a long time, but they moved us from Japan. It was really expensive, so I needed to stay there for a year. During that first half of the year, I thought, well, I got to get out of this situation, and so I wanted to go back to doing consulting, but doing it from the U.S. side rather than the Japanese side. And so I got this idea of actually, running a bed and breakfast and having my consulting business in there. So my wife and I, we found a bed and breakfast. It was a 13,000 square foot mansion in Bloomington, Illinois. And the reason why the balance came was because as I was doing this bed and breakfast, and my wife was in the background, she did the cooking and she did the cleaning and everything, and took care of the kids, while I was the face of the business, and I was the one who actually did the decorating and the flower arranging, because I did floral arrangement in college too, and so I found lots of balance between that. And then I ended up at the University of Illinois as my first client after that year was over with that other company. And what I worked in a technology transfer office. And so I was dealing with high technology, which came from the research results of the university. And so my job was to look at these research results, determine if there was, if they were patentable, what other ways would we protect it with intellectual property, and then if there was a market, and how you would take it to the market. So I had these two different different activities going on in my household and in my brain, where I was doing all this artsy stuff and all this cleaning and cooking and taking care of guests and stuff, where on the other side I was doing the high technology. So anyway, I bring that up because that job that I took, which was a consulting job at first, ended up being a full-time position within the university. And I worked for the University of Illinois, the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, which is a Department of Energy laboratory in Washington State. And then after that, I went to the Qatar Foundation in Doha, Qatar, which is in the Middle East. And I was there for 9 years. But each one of these organizations, I had to help in playing around, building that innovation ecosystem and making sure that all parts of the puzzle were being worked. And these researchers, professors, these inventors, they often don't get a lot of accolades for what they do, but there's lots of expectations, and my job was to actually see if we could get something out of those that would benefit the public, because there's lots of money that goes into those universities and everything. So dealing with in this high-tech space, I had to learn how to talk with people of different academic backgrounds and try to understand them, and then sometimes try to piece different technologies coming from one department and another together to see if they work well. And sometimes the technologies would work well, but the people wouldn't necessarily work well. Or sometimes the people worked well, but we couldn't get the technology to work well. So it takes a lot to actually put those things together. And I from those activities, you also have to get the university to understand that technology transfer office has a purpose and everything, and that's often misunderstood. People think it's again, this is the don't let your education get in the way of your education. So education is part of the university's remit, of course, but what the outcome of that education, which ends up being technology, is equally as important, and maybe in some cases more important, because that's actually what shapes society. So all these ideas and everything, they're not worth anything if they're just sitting on the shelf.
Yeah. That's the part that blew my mind. I'm like, hold on. So technology transfer, ladies and gents, is not the transfer of a Mac or PC from one place to another, or the internet connection that goes from my house to your house. Technology transfer is about getting useful deployment from the researchers and people who find really cool things and develop really cool practices and processes around the emerging resources and technologies that we have, but not letting that go wash, rinse, repeat, and recycle back into academia for academia's sake, or government research back into government for government's sake. There are multiple applications of these things that I love what you said about helping and supporting the public. Can the public benefit from these things? And technology transfer is a misnomer in my mind, because it's more like technology deployment and best use of resources, but it takes effort. It takes time to be able to learn what these things are and figure out how it can be deployed and be able to make all the players in the sandbox play nice together. So, it's an interesting way to think about innovation, in that, in a silo, I have a degree in economics, so I talk in economic speak. In a silo, things are done without any outside input or interaction. But the silo is just a place to understand. It's not a place to live. So, I find that mutual prosperity is that which harvests the best of what is being discovered and learned in today's day and age, and being able to transfer it out and deploy it in a way that helps rise the tide and lift all the boats. So, in layman's terms, mutual prosperity is very brainy, and at the same time is very applicable, and it meets the ground. So thank you for hanging in there with us as we kind of opened up the container, the philosophical container, around how do we best use the raw resources that we have. And sometimes those raw resources are in our intuition, they're inside of us. And sometimes they're in a library somewhere that's been discovered for years, but is being kept at neutral and not being used because we have no mechanisms to do so. So John, thank you so much for making use and helping people to make use of the best and the brightest of what this world is starting to create, because that is exactly where we're going. Like this new normal in this age of disruption, where we sit and we wonder, everything's up for review and nothing is going back to the way it used to be, and it never was, but it's disconcerting for a lot of people. But it is a blessing to know that the gifts of learning and the gifts of taking action are being codified in your organization. And so I want to, just send people to mutualprosperity.com if you'd like to learn more about the sync process. John Taylor McEntire here, not related to Joey McIntyre, favorite new kid. Just saying. But it has been a pleasure to have you here to talk with us and to kind of open our eyes to the fact that we are all unique in ways and there's connection everywhere, and that all of that innovation from figuring out how different pieces fit together are meant for us to be able to help each other. And I think that's the bottom line for your business. Am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mutual prosperity is, trying to get people to understand that they're valued, and that the organization values them, and that they value the organization. And if we work together, we can have a mutually prosperous society that actually benefits everyone better than it has right now. And we just need to get to that point.
Whew, I'm on board. I am a believer. Thank you. Sign me up. And until next time, friends, make sure you click the like, subscribe, and the notification bell. This broadcast goes live every Monday morning at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. Yes, even on the holidays. So happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and everything joyous and celebratory. I'm wishing all the best and those blessings to you and yours. Thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.
You got it.